Boop. Happy Wednesday. Today is Wednesday, July the 6th, 2022. Today's daily Bible readings come to us from Psalm 6, 2 Kings 6, 1 through 7, Luke 10, 13 through 16, or you could have read Psalm 119, 73 through 80, Joshua 23, 1 through 16, and then end again with Luke 10, 13 through 16. I'm going to take a look at Luke and talk about Chorazin and Bethsaida. Jesus he's like, prepping his guys. He's, a leadership retreat. Actually, I guess the whole thing was leadership retreat. But he's getting them ready to go out and do what he's been doing, and they've been watching what he's been doing, and now he's going to send them out to do it on their own. And he's giving them some advice, and he's as they're heading out on their circuit ride, he tells them, hey, people are going to reject you. That's just going to happen. Don't get offended when people reject you and reject the message that I gave you, the gospel, the good news, because people are stubborn. And Jesus knows of what he speaks because he'd experienced it himself with Chorazin and Bethsaida, who rejected the gospel in spite of all the miracles that Jesus had performed there. So he's doing these incredible things. And then they're just like rejecting the gospel of this person who is doing all the things that, like, presumably somebody who is proclaiming the good news of the day of the Lord should be doing, because these were all signs of, yes, indeed, the day of the Lord had arrived, or was at least on its way. So they were just really too stubborn to see what they saw and then respond accordingly. And he points out, he's like, even Tyre and Sidon, these two Gentile cities that we read about in the Old Testament, he's like, if they had seen the things that you saw, they would have just they would have repented, they would have rejoiced, because after all, they at least acknowledged the lordship of David and of Solomon, which is, saying something, because they were Gentile nations. They weren't, part of Israel. They were actually Phoenician cities. Sidon's a really nice little coast town. It's kind of like Myrtle Beach, but Bronze Age. So, they at least acknowledged the lordship of David and Solomon. Even Elijah, the prophet Elijah, was able to perform a miracle in Sidon for the widow at Zarephath. And Sidon was the hometown of Jezebel, who was like the baddie of baddies in the Old Testament, and like Elijah's sworn enemy. So that's saying something for Jesus to say, hey, these two cities here would have repented if they could have seen the miracles that you're seeing today. So Jesus gets it, and he gives them this good advice that's reminiscent of what God even told Samuel when Israel decided they wanted to reject his leadership and they wanted a king like the other nations. Because God said to Samuel, it's not you, it's me. They're not rejecting you, they're rejecting me, just like they've been doing. And Jesus is telling his disciples, when you go into these cities and they reject you, they're rejecting the message. They reject me, and they reject my Father. So the guilt is on them. Just knock off the dust and walk away, because it's no skin off your nose. Anyway, that's the DBR for today. Get out, enjoy the day, and we'll talk to you later. Boop.